Looks like we are live.
Awesome.
Hello and welcome to Black Rifle TV. I'm here with McLaurin Lamb, is it?
It's pronounced McLaren Lamb.
McLaren Lamb, I'm sorry. He's a Canadian gun owner, and I'm sure everyone's aware of what's going on up there. So I decided to bring him in. He can talk to us about what he's going through. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right. Well, my name is McLaren Lamb. I am a Canadian gun owner. I do have a small YouTube channel, and I live in Calgary, Alberta. And my channel is mostly just about reviewing various firearms. And the firearms that I'm interested in are the ones that have been recently banned by Trudeau. So that's kind of what we're mostly here to discuss.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do apologize about that. I mean, I'm in a pretty leftist state. I'm in Washington State right now, and it's pretty much the same. It's coming to this state eventually. I already know it. I talk to gun owners here, and they say, "Oh, it's never going to happen here." It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time. I mean, I don't know if are you familiar with Washington State?
A little bit. Like I do know that you guys are like more of a leftist state. I don't know.
It's pretty much we might as well just be Canada. That's
right.
I was talking with another YouTuber, and that's what he was saying. We might as well just be Canada. So, do apologize about that. So I guess you're originally from Canada, or is it?
Yeah. I was born here in Calgary, Alberta.
Where is that? Pacific or East?
It's Western Canada, so it's kind of like right above, like a little bit north.
Montana, Idaho.
Right above where you guys are at, like.
Oh, okay.
So, like, between Saskatchewan and British Columbia.
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about Canada, so that's. All right, so I guess what kind of firearms do you have currently? Or I guess you are going to have at the moment?
Well, currently I own 3 different firearms. I just have a Remington 870 TAC 14, so it's a really short Remington 870. I have a AR-15 that has a specialized receiver to give it a non-restricted status.
Yeah, I saw that. I was interested by that.
And then I have a VZ58 as well.
So out of all the ones that you have, are they all gone?
Well, the VZ58, yes, it is on the list. It is on the ban list by name. So it is currently banned. I cannot use it right now. I can't shoot it, sell it, transport it. Can't do anything like that with it right now.
I'm sorry, I'm just a bit confused. You're saying that you can't even shoot it?
Nope, can't even shoot it. Like I can't really do anything with it other than keep it in my own home or hand it into the government. That's kind of 2 options as far as I'm aware. There is a 2-year amnesty period for gun owners to hand in the guns that they were banned, that are banned currently. So, like, having it in my own home isn't a crime as of right now.
So right now it's just a paperweight?
Pretty much, yeah.
Jeez. Well, I guess my one question before we start into the actual questions, I actually got this off of Reddit, and I asked them, I was interviewing you, and I said, what questions do you have? So that's actually where I got these questions from. So I guess one more question I do have for you before I start is, what are the laws toward seizure of property in Canada?
Well, here in Canada, we don't have a constitutional right to own guns. So
I know your courts see it as a privilege, is it?
Pretty much. If a gun gets banned, the police do have the authority to enter my home without even a warrant and take it from me.
What?
And there's nothing I can do. That, as far as I'm aware, is what is allowed here in Canada. So, I'm not like an attorney or anything, so don't like.
No, I've heard that. I've heard those horror stories on YouTube. I believe you. It's coming here. I mean, that's all I can say. I think a lot of people in this country seem to think, oh, it's not going to happen here. It's not going to happen here. But I'm just saying, look, it happened in Australia, New Zealand, now Canada.
Yep.
So it's coming. Yeah. It's only a matter of time.
When it's happening right next door to you guys, like right above you guys, we're getting our guns taken away.
Well, I mean, it's like it was one thing when it was just across the ocean on the other side of the planet, and you say, "Oh, we'll just write them off. Don't worry about them." It's Canada, it's right there.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right, I guess let's start with the first one. What's the general attitude toward firearms and firearm ownership in Canada?
Well, I know with the older generations here in Canada, like people above the age of like 50 years old here are definitely come from families who probably hunted a lot and stuff like that. So I think there's definitely a hunting culture here in Canada, but not so much with like tactical sport shooting. So, the use of ARs and, kind of like just those tactical rifles, especially the ones that have been banned. So there's a generally kind of like apathetic attitude. Like there's not too much of an anti-gun crowd here, but there isn't too much of like
a fight mentality.
So it's a kind of neutral attitude, I think, in my opinion. I don't see a lot of people here in Canada, nor have I met a lot of people here in Canada who are like really anti-gun. But it's hard to be pro-gun here too because there's no actual right to own the gun.
So there's no like First Amendment in Canada.
No. Like, there is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but that like firearms aren't included in that at all, as far as I'm aware.
So could you get in trouble for saying like being pro-gun? Could you get in trouble for that in Canada?
You can't get in trouble for being pro-gun. Like you do have the right to
Sorry to ask that. I just heard like in Australia and New Zealand that if you had like a pro-gun, I think it was in Britain actually, where there was this YouTuber who ran a pro-gun channel. They actually took his license away because they didn't like the message he was pushing.
Yeah.
So that's why
I've seen that a lot as well, and like especially in the United Kingdom, it's like just downright.
It's just that country's.
So
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it.
Saying that country just went completely
yeah. No, I agree. They are arresting people just for like stuff they say on the internet, even if it isn't threatening. Like if you're even seen as like right wing or like pro gun in certain places in the United Kingdom, I find that like you can actually be like fined. So that's kind of scary. But in terms of back to your question, like the general attitude of firearms in Canada amongst like just most people is pretty neutral, I think. It's not something that's discussed too much here in Canada.
Just keep it low key.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess let's move on to the next one. If each regulation before this was meant to prevent incidents like this and the most recent mass shooting, how will this make it any better?
I don't think it will. I don't think this will actually give any tangible result to like preventing gun violence in Canada, because as far as I'm aware, pretty much all like the vast majority of gun crime here in Canada is done with guns that were illegally acquired by people who were not licensed to own them. And this new regulation only affects people who are legally allowed to own firearms. And so it won't actually make any difference in terms of preventing gun violence or mass shootings. As far as I'm aware, I don't see how it would.
I guess let's phase this into the next one. It's how would this have prevented the actual shooting?
Not at all, because again, the guy who committed this shooting in Nova Scotia, I've heard many times from multiple sources that he used guns that were not even acquired illegally, like supposedly they were smuggled in from out of country, and he was not licensed to own them. He actually, in fact, had a previous assault charge under his name.
So he couldn't even, if he wanted to get a license, he wouldn't be allowed to do it.
If you want to get a license in Canada, I think your criminal record has to be perfectly squeaky clean. I don't even think the smallest thing can be on there. So
I guess let's go on to the next one. Do you feel like this is the plan all along?
I know that like for a long time now, the Liberal government in particular has had a sort of a bit of a tiff with gun ownership in Canada. They've wanted to ban the SKS, the VC58. They wanted to ban the AR-15. They were calling everybody in Canada asking if they would support a altogether handgun ban. like just no handgun ownership in Canada, period. So it is, I think it was their plan all along, and I think that they took advantage of the current situation to implement this regulation.
I actually wanted to, I don't, sorry if I cut you off. I actually wanted to show a, I don't know if you've seen this yet. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Can you see this?
It's actually really small on my screen. I'm actually using my phone. My laptop's quality is so low, so.
Okay. So this is, I saw this actually today. It says Trudeau says legislation on municipal handgun bans will move forward, but he doesn't say when.
Right.
So this looks like the latest news. So
Yeah,
it
I'm
looks
not
like he's
surprised that they would go for handguns right after. I'm actually surprised that isn't what they went for first, was all the handguns, because that's what they said they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So to hear the news about the ban on all these rifles, these assault weapons, was actually surprising. I totally didn't see it coming, actually.
Do you are you surprised that he didn't? Sorry, it looks like it got messed up. There we go. Are you surprised that he didn't just go for an all-out handgun ban?
No, I'm not surprised. I think there are a lot of people who oppose it, and it might be difficult to do, just because there are so many handguns sold here in Canada. Like I know most handgun owners here in Canada generally build up a collection. So it costs a ton of taxpayer dollars for them to retrieve those handguns. They very well could, because handguns here in Canada are registered, so they know exactly where you are and who you are and what guns you have. So
well, registration leads to confiscation. It's
all the time.
That's the whole point of it. You know, people. I hear these. No, I've talked to gun owners. Say, "Oh, I'm okay with registration." I sit there and tell them, "You realize what the purpose of that is?
Exactly.
It's not for criminals. They don't use it against them. They're letting them out of prison right now. I don't know if you heard about that. No, they're letting them out."
Oh yeah, so, no, the sentencing for criminals here in Canada is just a joke. Actually, I've heard of murderers getting no cash bail.
Oh, they got rid of bail up there too. I know California did that.
Yeah, so it's my brother works as like an officer for like their processing when they first bring in.
I appreciate his service.
Oh yeah, and me too. And he deals with a lot of terrible stuff. And he knows when people are released on no cash bail, and he says people who really ought to not be released do. There's just recently he's had some guys break their no cash bail for first degree murder because they were caught red-handed trying to dispose of the body. So that's and you know, even I think his name's Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, was talking about that, how you know just just the sentencing for actual criminals, for actual gangbangers and stuff like that, and real murderers is very light. So
how do you think it got to that? I guess that's not really firearm related, but how do you think it got to that point? Do you think just judges did that, or is there a law passed that?
Supposedly it's just to keep a flow of money is what it is. Like I don't exactly know what their reasoning behind it is, but I remember
I don't know either.
It feels like it's just a revolving door system.
Mm-hmm.
They just have people coming in and out, and it's just generally not taken very seriously, their offenses. Mm-hmm. Which ironically, because if you commit a firearms offense as a law-abiding gun owner,
they're gonna kick your door and they're gonna come and take it.
Yeah, one wrong move, like even if you forget to notify the government that you've moved within 30 days and you're a restricted firearms owner, you can get in huge trouble for just that. You know, we're talking jail time.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, because they gotta know where those guns are. Gotta be able to know where they confiscate them. You know.
Yep.
I guess let's move on to the next one. So I guess there's another question. Another article I saw was if the AR-15 is not used for hunting, why are the Indian reservations allowed to hunt with them?
Well, I know for like rules here in Canada generally sometimes apply differently for First Nations communities, especially on reserves. Like I'm not sure if like what the rules are for like First Nations people are in terms of hunting, but I think that's kind of why it applies to them probably differently because
So
they're
they have like their home rule type thing.
kind of, I guess. Like I don't want to say too much about it because I don't actually know, and people
No,
need to
that's
be
fine.
really sensitive about it. So,
Mhm.
but
Our
generally,
Navajo. Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry, the
Our
timers were
Navajo nations are a lot like that too. Like that's how they're able to run their casinos and
right.
everything.
So I do know that like I think um, rules can apply differently to status First Nations people here.
Mhm.
So I
I don't have
think
anything against those people. I don't want anyone to come out here and say, "Oh, we're being racist toward them." Look, I don't have a problem. I think it's good that they're hunting, but it's just it doesn't really make any sense to me how he goes on national TV saying that we got to take these things because they're killing everybody because they're just getting up and killing people, and then he turns around, he says you have 2 years to turn it in. Why aren't you taking them now? I don't want him to take it, but it's just
yeah,
that doesn't add up.
yeah, it's really weird this whole thing how he just kind of dropped it on us out of nowhere, and it's kind of a special situation too. I think the reason you can't take them away right now is because in order to actually give fair compensation in terms of a buyback, there has to be legislation for that.
Hmm.
Where this is not legislation, this is regulation. So,
Actually, let's guess what's going to our next one. How do you feel about him just shoving this through and not putting it through now? Because I don't know how Parliament there works. Because I know we have like a House, a Senate. So I guess how do you feel that they didn't put it to a floor vote?
well, the way it works is a governing party can bring on legislation, which basically would make something law officially, right? So, new legislation, we know what that is. And in order for that to happen, they have to go through the House of Commons, and the House of Commons, like in Parliament, is where these sorts of decisions are discussed and voted on by all parties, and perhaps even consideration from civilians and citizens is brought in as well. So I'm really upset that that didn't happen. That he didn't go through the House of Commons or Parliament to do this, and no chance to even argue it was given to any other parties, and they can't right now because of COVID-19. Right, our House of Commons is actually shut down right now, so they only have one in-person meeting a week, and it has to be for COVID-19 related stuff. So they wouldn't even they don't have a chance to even discuss the decision at all, even if they want to.
I believe there was here in Rhode Island, which is on the East Coast. So I think they were get ready to shove through a bunch of gun control, and I think this COVID-19 actually came through, and they actually weren't able to do. They were trying to, from what I understand, they were going to just continue debating it, even without people being able to come in and talk to them. So, okay.
Yeah, that's very undemocratic.
Mm.
And and a lot of people, even like people who aren't pro-gun here in Canada, are just upset at how Trudeau decided to implement this regulation, just without any discussion at all.
I guess let's
So,
go into actually the next one. Does he have a right as a minority to pass this without a vote?
well, I believe he has the right to pass it as regulation, um, but not legislation. So,
Actually, I did have a quick question about that. Could you explain the difference between a regulation and an actual law? Can you explain what the difference is? Is it an executive order or what is this?
a regulation is more like I don't know. It's kind of like the little brother to legislation, I guess, if I were to kind of just put it that way. It's hard to even explain what the actual difference is without actually looking it up myself, the official like definitions of each. But regulation can be implemented by a minority government or by a certain party without without like discussion. But I think only like minor decisions can be made regulation, whereas large decisions that'll be actually proper laws have to be put in as legislation, which means it would have to be debated in the House of Commons.
What is the difference between that and do you have an executive order? up there? Do you have such a thing?
I'm not actually aware of that. No.
Well, it's basically an executive order. I don't have the definition off the top of my head, but it's just that, like that's actually how we a lot of the states are actually I guess shut down right now. A lot of it's just because of executive order. Like it's just a edict that the governors put out. Like it's just a rule that they made up. I don't know. I don't know what the definition is, but
Yeah.
it sounds
They
different from
basically
that.
just say it, and it's a rule, like just word of mouth, I guess. And well, I don't know if that's something that happens here in Canada, if they can do an executive order. Maybe in certain cases, like back when Pierre Trudeau,
That was
former
his father, was
prime
it?
yeah, he actually declared like martial law, I believe, during his leadership, because there was like some terrorist stuff going on at the time. So I think that kind of executive order can happen, sort of thing. Like if there's something like declared as an emergency. I think he did declare like an executive order in terms of like proper social distancing and expecting certain businesses to close down or only allow a certain number of people inside. So I think that kind of decision can be made without any sort of paperwork being done, I guess. So
Yeah, well, here they've just completely overstepped. I don't know if you're aware of Michigan, that crazy lunatic governor they have over there. Yeah, she just has her foot on everybody's throats over there. It's
I did not know about that.
Yeah, they actually have open carry in their capitals, and it's actually when they were doing their protests, they were open carrying, and she didn't seem to like that too much. So
Really?
yeah, I couldn't imagine why. So actually, this isn't really a question that I've been asked, but it's one that I've been interested in. Like, could you explain to us who Trudeau is? Like, who this character is? I don't honestly know much about him, but from what I can see, this guy is just a clown. So why don't you tell everybody who he is and explain, like,
Well,
talk about his father and such.
well, yeah, his father was Pierre Trudeau, and he's a former prime minister of Canada. And his son Justin Trudeau, I think, kind of used that sort of lineage to get voted in.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple things his party promised to do that also got them voted in as well. But I believe, like in Canada, there's sort of a divide between the rest of Canada and Quebec. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but Quebec kind of wants like sovereignty in Canada. Like they want to be essentially their own country, ideally, I think. And I think,
sounds like California.
yeah, exactly. And Trudeau, I even just watched like a video of him when he was 18 years old. He wanted Quebec to be a sovereign state.
Mm-hmm.
When he was young, and I think he still believes that now, and I think Pierre Trudeau believed that now. And it can be kind of frustrating for Canadians when a lot of decision making is based on how Quebec feels
Yeah,
in terms
yeah,
of their government. So
it's a
I
lot
think,
like that.
yeah, I think Justin Trudeau represents Quebec quite a bit. Like, as you know, he's like a French speaking Canadian. And he also speaks English, of course, as well. And I think, like, my opinion on him is that he does not care about Western Canada at all. Like, he's from Toronto, right? And that's where they're at.
How did he start politically? Was he mayor or was he city council? Like, how did his career start?
I'm not actually sure of like how his career started and how he got up to being prime minister, like how he worked his way up exactly. That's why I said I think like the fact that he's the son of Pierre Trudeau, that kind of helped him a lot. And he probably knew a lot about politics and stuff as well.
Yeah, he knew how to talk sweetly in everybody's ear.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. Like I think yeah, he had a certain sense of charm. That was kind of the big deal about him when he first got elected. Was I think just everybody just kind of fell in love with him a little bit. And
I don't know what there is. This guy is such a loser. I don't know what to say. I mean, especially after he went over to. I don't know if you saw that he went over to India. That was a couple of years ago. He dressed up in this foolish outfit. I just looked at that. I just said, "Oh my! If Trump did that, he'd be a racist." He'd be
Oh yeah,
impeached over that. I just sat there and said, how does this? He sits there and talks down at us for cultural appropriation. I don't know all these buzzwords, but isn't that what cultural appropriation is?
Yeah, and like there is clear evidence of Justin Trudeau in blackface as
Yeah, I
well.
saw that. I don't know if you saw that in
So,
Virginia. They had their governor was like that too. Everybody was breaking out in blackface.
so I think a lot of people like Trudeau as well because he's a very progressive person. Like he's
Of
definitely
course, they can do whatever they want as long as
liberal,
they're pushing the
left
right ego.
wing. Yeah, exactly. And I think like how in the United States you have like red and blue states.
Hmm.
You know, I think like British Columbia and Saskatchewan and Alberta, which are three large provinces here in Canada, here in Western Canada, are like what you'd call us like a red state, like more conservative voting people. Whereas like Manitoba, Quebec, and Ontario, which is kind of like the more populated end of Canada,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
more like liberal, left, kind of blue state kind of people. And um, when they like everybody in Western Canada could vote conservative and still not even come close.
Yeah, that's how everybody in the rural areas are like, with the big cities just outvoting them.
Yeah, exactly. Like Ontario and Quebec and Manitoba combined can just outvote us completely, because they're in love with their special Trudeau boy. So
Of
and,
course.
like most people I know in my life do not like him, like my friends and family, and like just generally, like I see a lot of protests against him here in Calgary, which is definitely like more Western Canada. So
I guess let's go into our next question. Do you believe this will actually be brought to a real vote? Or do you think
I
it would
don't
pass?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot, like there's just too many people against it. Like the entire conservative government is just downright against it. And of course, every gun owner in Canada, or like 99% of gun owners in Canada, are against it.
Of course, you have those FUDs out there with their shotguns and all that
That's what I
crap.
mean. Like there are some gun owners in Canada who just own like a bolt action, so
We call them FUDs down here.
yeah, but I've definitely heard that that name before as well, and that's a good name for it. They're exactly the same up here. They're like, oh yeah, bolt actions. That's all I need. You can go ahead and ban those Mattel assault rifles, and then
Assault rifle.
exactly, yeah, assault weapon. So, but I don't think it will pass the way it currently is. If it does pass, because in order for it to become legislation, it'll have to be brought to the House of Commons once the COVID-19 thing is sorted out and the House of Commons reopens. And I think once it is properly debated, it will either be revoked as just being a generally stupid decision, or there'll be a lot of, sort of like just stuff dropped off of the regulation. Like they're going to go, okay, we won't ban that many, or we'll just ban this type or something like that. Like because it's pretty bold of them to just literally take every model of like semi-auto removable magazine rifle essentially in existence and just ban them all across the board by name.
Is that what their definition of a so-called assault rifle is, or is it just like
pretty
the
much.
characteristics?
I said in my YouTube video that if it has a removable magazine and it's semi-auto and it shoots center fire cartridges, it's pretty much on that ban list.
Oh, okay.
So all the cool tactical stuff that you and I would like, obviously the ARs, the VZ58, the AK is already banned in Canada.
Yeah, I already knew about that actually.
The Mini 14, the Ruger Mini 14, that's banned.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
That's banned?
Yeah, the Ruger Mini 14, and that's generally like a lot of people don't think assault weapon, like even liberals don't think assault weapon when they see the Ruger Mini 14.
Yeah,
It kind of looks like
the traditional stock. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that's banned. The Scorpion Evo is banned. Just a ton of stuff. I think I put a link to the list of all the stuff that's banned in my YouTube video about that, because the list is just every
1,500,
gun.
is it?
1,500 models of gun. Yep.
what did it take to make it on that list? What were they calling? I don't know if I asked this already, but what was it? What was it that made it a particular rifle? Like, let's say I'm just an average gun owner and I have a gun in my safe. I have something with a detachable magazine. What would it take for that to be considered a assault rifle?
Pretty much like what you just said. If it has a detachable magazine and it's semi-auto, it
Oh,
can,
okay.
it can end up on that list, right? So
So that's
there's some guns
everything.
that are semi-auto that won't be on that list, like tube-fed shotguns or like
Oh, so
tube.
those are on the list too.
No, like I don't
Oh, they're
think
not.
like tube-fed guns are, but like it's basically you just got to look at it as like what do liberals think is an assault weapon,
Yeah, I
and
know. That's
it's all based on look, right? Not even
mm-hmm.
actual function.
Because
So like,
damn comfort. You can't have your finger around that pistol grip. It's just the adjustable stock. Oh, too much comfort.
yeah,
Can't have that.
yeah. If it has like an adjustable stock or rails on it, or it's black, or it's got a removable magazine or a long-looking magazine, then it's an assault weapon essentially. And that's why it's confusing because there's actually not even a really official definition for assault weapon. But you kind of generally know what the leftists are talking about when they say assault weapon. They're
Well,
talking
they mean
about
everything. That's usually what
yeah,
I mean. That's usually
yeah,
what it translates to me.
exactly. And like I think ideally the liberal government would have this place just like Japan. Like in Japan, you're not allowed to own guns. Period. Like you cannot.
Well, you have to have a special permission to own like a bolt action, like a single one bullet
Yeah,
bolt
I
action.
think you have to be licensed even to have airsoft down there, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I'm not sure. I can't say that. So
Yeah,
it
like
wouldn't
I
surprise
can't
me.
confirm that either. That was just something I heard,
Mm-hmm.
but places like China and Japan and like lots of places where you just cannot own guns. Period. If you're a civilian, I think ideally the liberal government would want that. Like they refer to hunting as their only purpose to own guns.
Well, they're against that too. I know in California they're taxing the hell out of hunting, and they're going after lead-free ammunition. They're making it next to impossible to hunt. So I think they don't think they even want us to hunt either.
Yeah, and that's weird that they think that like lead is sort of a pollution in the forest because I've heard that like the effect that like shooting lead into the dirt in a forest is intangible. Like it's like a spit in the ocean. So
I guess let's go on to our next question. What will it take for that to be reversed, the decision? Will it take a firearms group or it just be a simple, like, from what I understand, he lost his majority in this election. Am I right?
you did, yes. They are a minority government. They still got like the most votes, but
That
like
blackface incident costed him.
yeah, and I think this incident will too. So
Oh,
um,
he's probably done. I mean, I don't
yeah,
want
I
to.
think so as well.
It's the same
Um,
in Virginia. I think that they're done. I think after all this
yeah,
crap they pulled.
after I heard about what was going on in Virginia, I was actually freaked out by that. I was like afraid of what was going to happen because it seemed like neither side was going to back down.
Hmm.
But to answer your question, I think it could be reversed. Like that's not impossible. And I think the liberal government will be pretty stubborn about it. Like there was a huge petition in Canada to make the AR-15 a non-restricted rifle, meaning you could hunt with it and take it to the range without a ton of paperwork on you. And they just ignored that petition completely. But the conservative government is pretty opposed to it. All gun owners are opposed to it, and the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights is obviously opposed to it. And I think a lot of people in general are opposed to it because of how much taxpayer money it's going to cost.
Yeah, no,
So
that's why you got your long gun registry was because of that.
exactly, yeah. Same with the long gun registry. This might go the same as that, where they implemented this long gun registry and it just kind of got kicked off the map because so many people were just outraged by it. And
I think
this,
they were people were registering like just random crap to it.
yeah, exactly. And it was stupid. And a lot of people were not happy about it. They were like, no, I'm not registering it. Many people would say they'd sooner bury their guns than register it with the.
They have a boating accident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Canadians also know that registration leads to confiscation as well.
Well, I mean, we've seen it in New Zealand and Australia. I mean, I might actually do a interview with a New Zealand or Australian. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's true
anyone
too.
over there.
But yeah, they I don't know if they can just I think it's possible that they could reverse this
Do you think they have the balls to do it, for lack of a better term?
who
The
does?
conservatives, like, because if I
Oh
understand,
yeah, I think they will definitely give it a shot. Like right away, the conservative leader Andrew Scheer was not shy about saying that he thought it was an inappropriate decision and he did not support it, and he feels that the money could be better used for tightening up border security and actually getting the guns out of criminal hands. So with him saying that, I do feel like he is actually going to have the balls to actually stand up against it. And I know that Andrew Scheer and Trudeau in the House of Commons have had some pretty fiery exchanges as well. They're not shy to disagree with each other.
which is
So
healthy.
it is. It's good, and you
We
know,
can't sit in
and
an echo chamber. I'm sure they'd like that, but
yeah, and like it. So yeah, decisions aren't always one-sided, especially when it's a minority government, which is good because again, it's just undemocratic how they just slap this regulation on us. So I hope it gets reversed, and I think it can. And I think if enough people actually do the necessary steps to get it reversed, it could be like people like myself should be calling their local MP, you know, their local representative for Liberal government and complain. They should call their local representative for the Conservative government and complain and say, I don't like this. I don't want this to happen. I don't support it. We should sign petitions. We should lobby for major companies who sell a lot of stuff here in Canada to do what they can.
stop selling to the military or police. That's
Yeah, exactly.
the
Yeah, so
citizens
just
can't have it. Why do they have it?
so I think it is possible, and I do have like a you know, I have good confidence that this regulation won't be passed as legislation, at least in its current state. You know, I could see them banning maybe like, you know, a couple hundred models of firearms, but not practically all of them.
So I
So
guess I don't know. I don't know if I asked already. What is the current makeup of the legislative body, and would it take? Was it like a vote? Like, do you have to do like an actual vote, or is it just a to reverse this? What would it take?
it would kind of be a vote, yes. Like in order for the regulation to be passed as legislation, it would have to be supported enough in the House of Commons, and I don't think it will receive that much support in the House of Commons, so it probably won't get passed as legislation. At least I don't think, because I think most people in the Canadian government right now don't support it, aside from the Liberals. But I think even NDP and especially Conservative and all those people aren't that for this decision. You know, not even if they're not interested in guns, it's just a money thing too. Like it's
Well,
gonna
it's
cost
just a
a ton
power
of money.
grab thing.
It is. Yeah. So yeah, it's and people see right through Trudeau's crap on this too. They can see that this is just a tyrannical move on his part, and it's not about like you know being good for the people because anybody with half a brain knows that this regulation isn't going to save any lives at all.
Well, but
So
anybody with half a brain would know that like people need to stop idolizing these politicians. They don't care about us. We're scum to them. It's just all this is money making for them. They don't care. I mean, once you get up to that federal level, I mean, you're pretty much just scum. I mean, you're corrupt. You're bribing. You're doing all
oh
kinds of crooked stuff. I don't have high opinions about them. I'm sorry. I don't.
oh yeah, no, I feel a similar way when I look at the eyes of a politician, like a
They're
lot of
lying to
people
me.
politicians. Yeah, like they don't even have like a soul. Like I don't even feel like there's a person in there sometimes. Like I feel like they are just in it for power and money. And you know, like terrible things could happen to people around them or in their country as a result of their decisions, and they wouldn't lose any sleep over it. So you know, and with Trudeau, like it is just a gesture of good faith for the recent horrible massacre in Nova Scotia. And it's just Trudeau's way of showing support for them in a sense that's like, okay, you know, this terrible thing happened, so I'm going to ban all these guns. Look how great of a guy I am. I'm so awesome. I banned all these guns, so now I'm a good president. I'm doing something good in light of this shooting. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I feel about it, and that's
So
what I think he is.
So, quick question: how much time do you have left?
I have about 20 minutes left.
Oh, we got plenty of questions we can ask.
Yeah.
So, I guess what kind of guns are you allowed to own? Like before this, like I know you guys could get suppressors a lot easier, and you could have your uppers on your ARs as short as you wanted. Is that correct?
Well, we couldn't have suppressors in Canada now.
Oh, you couldn't. So I've been hearing
No,
fake news.
yeah, no. As far as I'm aware, in Canada, we cannot have suppressors. That is like the most illegal firearm accessory we could possibly have here in
Okay.
Canada. So if it
I
even
think
like,
I
go
think
ahead.
that was Hank Strange or what he got heard on his podcast. Someone on there said they could have suppressors, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
as far as I'm aware, that's like a
No, I don't want
huge.
anyone to get mad
Yeah,
at him
sure.
about it. So
But sorry. Oh, yeah, you were asking what kind of guns we could get. So we could actually get a lot of guns. There was a few that were banned. Like almost everything made by HK is banned here in Canada, like the MP5, the G3, G36, UMP, and all that, like all those cool HK guns. Those are banned here. The MP7 that's banned.
was
The
there a
AK.
reasoning for? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. No. Well, the reasoning I honestly believe is because you just see them in movies and stuff, right? Like, I
Movies.
honestly believe that a liberal just watches a movie like Die Hard and goes, "Yeah, I don't like that gun. I don't
Well,
like
they get
that
their
gun."
notebook. They get their notebook out and say, "Which siege? I don't like that one.
Yeah, I
Banned.
think
That
they
one
literally just
banned."
got like an HK catalog and were like, "That one, that one, that one, that one, that one. I don't want that."
That
Right?
was. It's funny that you actually just did that because that was actually I don't know if you're aware of our federal assault weapons ban during the Slick Willie days.
Yeah.
And that's actually what Dianne Feinstein, I don't know if you ever saw that creepy woman, oh, if I could get
Oh,
51 more votes, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in. That's actually what she did. She took a book, like for guns, and she just started picking out, I don't like that one, ban that one, ban that one. That's what she did. So
that's
that
pretty much
actually
how
brought
it
back
is.
bad memories.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's pretty much how it is. So I know that like most HK stuff is banned here, and so is the AK platform, the AKM platform of any kind. Like
Do
if
you know
it's
why that is for the AKs?
once again, I think it's just because that AK has that reputation of being a scary assault gun, and it's got that reputation of being the bad guy's gun. Like whenever you see terrorists and stuff like that, they always have the AK. And if you ever see like in movies, the bad guys always have AKs and stuff like that. So the AK has just been banned for, I don't even know, like it's been banned for forever here, like a long time. And the Steyr that's banned here. It got banned because some guy, I think like in the 80s or 90s here, or perhaps even the 70s. It was a while ago. There was a mass shooting here that involved the Steyr, so that got banned like instantly.
Oh,
But
okay.
we can own like ARs, SIG 550, AR 180. We can get the VZ 58, which is like getting that AK vibe going a little bit. It's not the same gun, but it's pretty close. Shoots 7.62 by 39 semi-auto. We can get the SKS. We can get the SVT 40. Just a whole bunch of stuff and pretty much any bolt action or pump action is fine. We can get those as well. We can get like semi-auto AR style shotguns and like the Benelli M4 and stuff like that. I know the Spas 12 is banned in Canada. I'm not sure why, but I know that one's banned here as well, which is a shame because that's a cool one. But
Yeah. What can you have that we can't have?
I think there's some like Chinese stuff that we get here that isn't allowed in the US. But we don't. Chinese guns aren't that great, anyways. Like some of
I
them
think
aren't even worth the metal they're made out of. So
I think that's due to export, some sort of export
yeah,
rules.
like there's an export ban. So we get. I don't know if you can get the SVT 40, that old World War II Russian one, in the United
Would
States.
use it. I know. I don't know how this would still apply because I know Trump was actually was actually fixing a lot of these export import rules. But
Right.
typically, if it didn't have a traditional stock, they wouldn't allow it to be imported. I don't know if that's still in no play. So
Right. Yeah, but I know we get like there's a few Norinco things that are kind of popular here in Canada because they look cool and they're kind of cheap. But when it comes to guns, you get what you pay for, especially if they're from China. So, like, I know a popular one here in Canada is the Norinco Type 97, which shoots 5.56, and it's a bullpup rifle. But it's okay. It's an okay gun. There's the Norinco M305, which is essentially a Chinese M14, and it costs like $800 Canadian, which is something like $550 US, I would say. So definitely cheaper than a Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
But and we can get a lot of handguns here, like Glocks. Those are fine.
Is there a handgun roster of what you can and can't have?
Basically, not really. Kind of the only handguns that are really banned in Canada are ones with like barrels that are too short. So you could get them in Canada if they have a barrel extension, but that kind of makes them look stupid. Like you know the Walther PPK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know those are banned. That's the James
Yeah,
Bond gun.
you can get it in Canada, but it has like an inch of extra barrel sticking out the end. So the cool factor is just completely gone. So there's no point to really having it here. And I think it's like the Glock. I know there's a Glock that's like
27,
really, yeah,
like
something
really
like that.
short one.
Yeah, like you can get that, but it also will have a extra bit of barrel sticking out, which makes it way more expensive too, because it's an aftermarket barrel made specifically for Canada. So it's like double the price.
So you might as well just get a 19. Can you have those there?
Yeah, we got Glock 19. I think it also has a tiny bit of barrel extension, but not much. Like it's hardly noticeable. It's just a tiny little bit. Yeah.
So pretty much, if you want to own a gun in Canada, you have to open up your wallet and.
Oh yeah. Like that kind of causes a bit of a markup here. So like the United States definitely has more spending power when it comes to firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, it's because they. I know that's actually where a lot of these anti-gun people are wanting to tax us to death for everything. That's sort of where they're getting that from. They want us. They know it's popular, so they we got to tax it. So.
Yeah. Well, and I know that like it's kind of a money thing in the United States. I've noticed. Like same with the SBR law. Like you can't have a short-barreled rifle unless you pay for the paperwork. Then
yeah, the NFA. That's
right?
just a scam.
Yeah, and same with suppressors, right? I noticed you have to get like what's called a tax stamp.
$200 paperwork where they get around to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like so you'll ban suppressors, but if people got some of this, then they can have it. So it's really just a money grab, and that's how I see it. Anyways.
I believe it was passed in the 1930s, and it was just I think I don't know if you ever watched Legally Armed America over there. I don't know if you ever seen him, and that was sort of the question he was sitting there asking: if it's so dangerous, why is it that I can still have it if I pay a bunch of money? He couldn't figure that out either, but
yeah.
I don't know. It's half this stuff I don't even get myself.
Yeah, same with machine guns there, eh? So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what kind of firearms groups do you have there? I know you have the Canadian Firearms Coalition. What other ones do you have there?
That's actually the only one that I'm aware of right now is the Canadian Coalitions for Firearm Rights. And I know that their kind of like spokesperson or like leader his name is Rod Giltaca. And he was recently on the news talking about the recent ban and kind of what a bunch of crap it is. So
I know Colin Noir actually did an interview with your female. I don't know what her name is. The female who's also with that group.
I just watched Colion Noir this morning.
Colion Noir, excuse me.
Yeah. He talked about the pronunciation in a podcast, but he was talking about how stupid it was and like how this is kind of a warning for the United States and how quickly gun rights will try to be stripped away and why it's important that you guys have the Second Amendment. I didn't see him talking to anybody else. He was just talking about it on his own in the video that I watched. But yeah, I'm glad he's talking about it though.
No, I mean I've seen a lot of channels here. I've actually talked about what's going on in Canada, which is good. I mean, we need to. I mean, hell, even in New Zealand. I mean, when that happened, I was paying attention to it. So it's just look, no matter where it is, you have to understand. Even though we do have a Second Amendment, these anti-gun people don't care because they want to take They don't care about the Constitution. They'll take that model and force it upon us. All it takes is just a simple majority in our legislature, and it's gone. Second Amendment there or otherwise. I think that's what people just don't realize or understand.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an important right. The right that they have to oppose the Second Amendment was won with guns.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the reason those rights exist in the first place is because of guns. So, for them to take those rights away is it's pretty scary. And I think there will be consequences if they take those rights away. Like, you'll see how fast the government will just totally crap all over you guys if you don't have the guns in your hands to
I think they would be worse than what you guys have. I think they would completely just run us over. I think it would be almost China-like. I don't want to make fun of those guys, but I want to say I do believe it would get to that point. I think they would run us over. Literally.
Oh yeah, I feel the same in Canada too. I feel like the only reason the government really wants to take guns away from people is because they want to do something that the people would kill them for, right? Like, so, and it happens every time in history. A government takes away weapons and just bans general ownership of weapons. That government then goes on to do something terrible to the people. Like even in 12th century or like what is it, 11th century Scotland, England came through and banned all swords and sword training. Like Scottish people were not allowed to own swords at all. And then you see what happens, right? The English raped, murdered, and pillaged the Scottish people for years and years, generations, until the Scottish people had to literally fight for their freedom back with farming equipment, right? And in Japan, same thing happened. Common people were not allowed to own weapons, so that's how you got ninjutsu, right? That's why they're so good with things like nunchucks and throwing stars, because those weapons are farming tools originally, right? And then
that's how it's. I know in China they were defenseless against their government.
Yeah, and they still are, right? It's just like the government has complete control over all people there in a scary way. So
I don't know if you saw the video of like they were walking around just spraying stuff, and it was just crazy how the people were just sitting there all huddled by their desks. I don't know if you saw that video, but yeah, I was.
I did. When the coronavirus hit, they were like locking people in their homes and just spraying literally everything on the street with something. That was kind of spooky, but that's the power they have, and who's going to stop them? Right?
Not the citizens. They gave up their guns, unfortunately.
Yeah, the citizens have zero power to fight their government, and the government of China has shown that they are ruthless enough to just completely, run over the people. So,
I guess let's start into our next question. If God forbid nothing happens, and say it's 2 years from now, what will Canadians do?
That's a good question. That's something I've been thinking about since this regulation passed, and I don't want to. I got to be careful what I say on the internet, but I know.
No, of course.
Definitely.
If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. I
do want to answer it, but I just have to make sure I word it correctly.
Oh, please do.
People will use like what you say can and will be used against you on the internet, right? So
yeah.
But I think there's a definite strong inclination towards hiding them and not handing them in. As many people in the United States say, I lost my guns in a boating accident. A lot of Canadians are sooner willing to stage a home invasion and claim that their guns were stolen rather than hand them in and, bury them somewhere. So I think that would be a big thing because, like in the United States, you guys can protest with open carry, right? And, and refuse to hand them in because you have the Second Amendment, right? But here in Canada, we don't actually have a right to keep guns. There isn't nearly as many of us here in Canada that are gun owners, so we don't have a lot of people to back us. And also, we can't open carry here.
Or concealed carry.
No, or concealed carry, I should say. You can only carry a non-restricted firearm if nobody can see it, and it has to be unloaded. And you can't just carry it on you, like it has to be in a case or something, So, and restricted firearms, you can only carry that if you have the proper paperwork and it's locked up and in a locked case. Like it has to have a cable lock through it or a trigger lock and be in a case that is locked. So,
and you need special permission and that whole binder of paperwork, right?
Yeah, it's tricky. So like in a way, like owning restricted firearms, which includes all handguns, is almost more trouble than it's worth. So
Yeah.
but yeah, like I think that will happen with a lot of the guns. People just simply might not turn them in. I'm not going to say whether or not I'm going to do that, but because exactly, yeah. So for sake of this interview, I will hand it in like a proper law-abiding citizen ought to, and
Yes,
I
sir.
would advise everybody else do that. But I think there's a lot of people who don't feel that way and
No,
don't
you
feel
have your ears on the streets. You're just hearing, you're taking a pulse. What's going on? So that's fine. That's all I ask.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying I'm going to do anything or that people should or shouldn't do anything, but that seems to be like kind of the inclination in the gun community. And I don't think anything too major will happen. Like if the legislation gets passed, then the legislation gets passed, right? And there's really not a whole lot we can do about it. So I can keep trying to get petitions going and stuff like that and protests, but that has no guarantee.
So what do you think about U.S. gun laws? And I guess if you go to pick and choose which ones you could have, which ones would you have?
I would believe in like if I could take the right to own guns and apply it here in Canada, I would do so. Right. And the only thing that I find that the US could do more with is like more safety course instruction on safe handling of guns, because the majority of like you can go on YouTube and look up just compilations of videos of people doing really stupid stuff with guns. And a lot of them come from the US. So I think like proper like safety instruction for people owning guns in the United States could help, even though there already is a lot of like sort of gun safety culture down there.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Well, I understand what you're. I'm sorry if I'm.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but the problem, like a lot of why we have to oppose it down here, is because they use it as a weapon against us. Unfortunately, I know you're about like the mandatory training. You pretty much use it as a weapon to make it as onerous as possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, I think personally, I think training should not be mandatory. I think it needs to be up to the gun owner, because unfortunately, they're going to use it as a weapon against us. They're going to use it as a way to.
Well, and I don't think it should be mandatory, but I think just like it being introduced,
mm-hmm.
Like perhaps like when how like you might be given advice, like because like if you walk into a lot of places and you don't really know anything about guns, right? You should be able to like kind of ask more about it, or like I think just like generally just firearms shops could be.
I know actually a lot of them will actually have a CCW training, and if you have questions about them, they'll help you.
Yeah, and that's something I'd just like to see more of in the United States, is just some of that, because I've just seen like I even saw recently a girl was like live streaming to Facebook or Instagram, and she was showing off a handgun on her live stream, and she shot her phone, and I was just like, oh man. So and like people were like the screen kind of froze, and people were still commenting on the live stream like, oh my god, did she just shoot her phone and stuff like that. So
well, unfortunately, I don't in cases like that. I don't think no matter how much training is gonna solve stupid.
Yeah, you might be right. There are some people who are just like destined to be, just irresponsible. And that's the only unfortunate thing about gun ownership that tends to happen in the United States. And it really is used as a weapon against you. As soon as somebody does something bad with a gun in the United States, everybody starts pointing fingers at law-abiding gun owners and expects you to take responsibility and explain for them, right? And that's not fair.
Well, I don't want to come across them against training. Like I'm all for it, but I think it needs to be up to the actual individual. My problem with this whole, like I know here in this state, if you want to buy a semi-automatic rifle, you have to take a unspecified training course, which of course they know and specify what counts. Yeah. They passed it, but they won't tell you what course you have to take. So, and I know Massachusetts is the same way. And the problem is when you have that, you have to do the mandatory interview to get their license. It just drags on for months and months and months and months, and it's just. Unfortunately, I just feel as if they do it just to it's another barrier to keep you from wanting to practice your Second Amendment. I just think that if you do it for the Second Amendment, they're going to start doing it for all your other rights.
Oh yeah, and I don't think it should be a mandatory thing at all, but because they will use it as a weapon against you. Like here in Canada, to get a license to own a gun, you can join in on a class and take the course and pass the course really fast. Like it can all happen in like a week, right? You book the class, pay for it, take it, pass it. The day that you pass the course, you are given the paperwork needed to send off. But then the real wait is once you send off the paperwork. I know for my brother, he sent off his non-restricted and restricted paperwork at once because he just did the tests back to back. And I think it took him like 14 months to get his license in the mail. Yeah, so it's just a ridiculously long wait. And they will do that to you in the United States if they manage something like that. And I don't even think it's because it genuinely takes them a long time to do the paperwork. They just let it sit on their desk.
It's like the NFA's like that too for suppressors and short barreled rifles. It drags on forever. There was actually, I don't know if I forget what the bill number is called. There was a bill in this country. They were trying to push something like that, mandatory training class. I don't think even licensing and all this other crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, and now that I got done talking about the NFA, that's what it'll take, and that's just unfortunately what these training courses will do. It's a weapon, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think more training courses could be introduced, but not mandatory ones. But just their availability would be good.
Absolutely.
For people to make sure that they know how to use their guns, because there's a lot of mistakes that can be made.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely, I agree.
I support the United States' gun laws, and I think that the Second Amendment is important. The gun laws in the United States that I don't support are the ones that are just not constitutional.
Absolutely.
Like what you see in California and Chicago and New York and Massachusetts. So
well, unfortunately, I don't think any of those are ever going to be reversed. I mean, unfortunately, I know they actually got their magazines back in California, but
oh wow,
who knows if they're going to be allowed to keep them? I mean, I know that for a day they're allowed to have ammo shipped to their door without because they got to do background checks on ammunition and gun parts now. So
wow,
yeah, it's crazy.
I thought that that was never going to happen because I saw what it takes to own an AR and stuff in California, and it's weird. Yeah. The magazine is stuck in the gun and
maglock, yeah.
Yeah, and I was to sort of reload, this guy was opening up the whole receiver and stuff, and I was like, man, you wouldn't even think they have a constitution after seeing all that stuff.
So no, they pretty much. I mean, then they got red flag laws. I'm sure you're aware what those are. I mean, they unfortunately over there they completely just stomp all over it, and they're doing it here in Washington State too. So I mean, you're seeing more and more states do this too. Nevada, Colorado. I mean, it's spreading like a virus, unfortunately.
Which is just sad to see because every state in the U.S. that, as far as I'm aware, that has strict gun laws seems to be the ones with the worst gun crime by far.
Such as everybody's running from them.
Yeah, exactly. I hear in Chicago, L.A., New York. Apparently, those are terrible places to be when it comes to gun crime. But those have very strict gun laws, from what I hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, New York City, it's even worse than Canada to even own a handgun. I mean,
yeah.
So I guess let's move on to our. I think you probably already answered this one about the Second Amendment. I mean, would Canada ever want one? Do you think?
If you could, I would, but I don't think that there are enough Canadians that support it. Unfortunately, it would be very hard for it to pass, just because governments are always talking about more gun control, never less. So it'd be a big deal for us to actually get a Second Amendment. But I think we just need to keep trying to push for more things, and slowly we will get more gun rights here in Canada. And that's actually something I would like to see, is having gun ownership within our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is the Canadian equivalent of the Constitution. So
what would it take to be added to that?
It would take just everything. It would take government support. It would take petitions. It would take, pushing from, movements like the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Um, probably take a lot of money and definitely a lot of time and, a million years of debate in the House of Commons, which is a good thing. I'm glad that, it would be debated. I hate to see things, just get passed without any discussion at all.
Yeah, pull a Justin Trudeau.
Exactly.
Okay, how much time do you have left? Or
I got about 10 minutes left, I'd say.
all right, well, let's go ahead and I guess we'll go and wrap it up. We'll do one more question. Is there anything those of us in the U.S. can do to help you guys out?
I think just like showing general support, like the gun community in the US talking about it and showing how they're not happy about it either, would help. That sort of thing. Like just people in the US saying like, wow, like what Justin Trudeau is doing right now is stupid and we're not happy about it either. I think is kind of like the best thing that you guys could do, and kind of really like one of the only things that people in the U.S. could do as well. Like in terms of the U.S. government, I don't know what they will do about it or what they can do about it, but I think
no, unfortunately, Trump is not pro Second Amendment. Unfortunately, he's not anti, but he's just unfortunately, I feel like he doesn't really understand the Second Amendment. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he owns one, but he just doesn't. I mean, it's just with his actions, you know what I mean? With the bump stock ban and all this other, all those comments he made, it just makes me think that he's not pro Second Amendment.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. They're probably gonna get some
definitely.
Trump haters hating me for saying that, but it's true, you know.
Yeah, well, and yeah, like so, and I wouldn't expect much support from him on this issue, but
I would
like
not.
from the general U.S. populace, I think just like showing verbal support is kind of like the best thing you guys can do for now, and just saying like, you know what, like we're not, we don't think that's very nice of the Canadian government to just go ahead and pass something like this without even asking. But I think what the U.S. people should do is see what's happening up here and make sure that you keep fighting for your Second Amendment rights, because without the Second Amendment, stuff like this happens, right? The government just slaps on new legislation or regulation just whenever they want without any opposition at all. So that's why the Second Amendment is important. And I think that people where you're from, like in the United States, can learn from what's happening up here in Canada and see why the Second Amendment is important. Even if you don't support the Second Amendment, you can see that without it, the government will do what they want to do, whether you like it or not. So, yeah, that's pretty much my answer to the question.
No, good, sure, thank you, I appreciate that. So, what you gonna do any more gun related videos and your views? Are you gonna do more videos?
I will.
Do you have any future videos?
I won't be able to get like much shooting footage with a lot of my guns because I can't shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
But I will try and do like reviews. There are some guns that I like to shoot that aren't on the ban list. But generally, my thing with guns is, semi-auto, removable Knox magazine rifles. And so a lot of the guns that I have owned or currently own or would like to own are on that ban list. And so it'll definitely be like hard on my channel, but I plan to keep on uploading stuff. Probably from now on, I'll also be uploading more videos talking about this issue and just other issues related to gun ownership here in Canada. So that'll kind of be where my channel starts to lean a little bit for now.
How long do you think it'll take for it to be reversed?
Hopefully less than the 2-year amnesty period that we have, because we have a 2-year amnesty period to hand in our guns. So I hope it takes less than that. But I feel like nothing will change until after the coronavirus situation is sorted out, because until that's sorted out, we can't really get any proper discussion on this new regulation. So it's hard to even say how long it would take. It could take anywhere from like a few months. If there's enough outrage towards this and enough backlash, they might repeal it in as little time as a couple months or a few months, or it could take years. It could take the rest of my life. Sometimes the government can be so stubborn about repealing things, right? So,
Do you think that's probably why he did this during the
yes,
coronavirus?
oh yeah, absolutely, and everybody knows it. It's obvious that he used the current situation to take to pass this regulation. So, because there was no argument about it at all.
Wow, I don't know what to say, man. Hey, it was great talking to you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me, and I really appreciate you letting me get a chance to give my opinion out on all these topics. So,
No, I appreciate you talking to me. This is actually my very first video on this channel. I don't know what I'm gonna do quite yet. I think I'm just gonna stick with political stuff for right now.
right.
I don't obviously own any guns as of right now. It's probably once I get a job and start making money, like I will. Right now, I think I'm just gonna stick to political stuff. I think that's more my wheelhouse. I typically am good at. So
Well,
we'll
I
go
think it
ahead
was
and.
great, and you had some great questions, and I really appreciate your time. And I
No, of
appreciate
course,
you
I
having
can't take credit for it. It was Reddit. I asked people on there what they were interested in, and I have to give thanks
me.
to them. So go ahead and tell where we can find you if you have any social media.
Right now, just YouTube is fine. My name is McLaren Lamb. If you look me up on YouTube, you should find my channel, and my channel is recognizable. It's like it'll be just videos of me reviewing different guns here. So,
All right.
yeah, that's pretty much where I can be found for now.
All right. Well, it's great having you. Thank you for taking your time to talk to me.
Yeah, thank you as well. I really appreciate it. Awesome. So if
All right.
if you have any more questions for me, just shoot me an email or a text.
Sure. I mean, if they reverse this, I'll have to bring you back on.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime you want to discuss anything more, I can find some time to do it.
I appreciate that. All right. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any more questions, go ahead and just drop them in the comments. And if you like what you've seen so far, go ahead and give me a subscribe and a like. Thanks,
Awesome. All
guys.
right. Thanks very much. You have a good one.
Thanks, guys.